Snoop Dogg is one of the most recognizable entertainers in the world. Millions know him as a legendary rapper, actor, businessman, and television personality. Today, he appears relaxed, confident, and successful. But behind that image is a story filled with hardship, difficult choices, and painful life lessons. Long before the fame, Snoop Dogg was simply Calvin Broadus, a young boy growing up in Long Beach, California. Life there was far from easy. His neighborhood struggled with poverty, crime, and violence, and many young people believed they would never have the chance to build a better future. Calvin was born on October 20, 1971, and was raised by his mother, Beverly Tate. His father was largely absent during his childhood, leaving Beverly to raise the family on her own. Although money was always limited, she worked tirelessly to provide for her children and teach them strong values. From a young age, Beverly introduced Calvin to church. Every Sunday, he sang in the choir, played the piano, and discovered a love for music. Those early experiences gave him confidence and allowed him to express himself in ways that would later shape his career. His family called him Snoopy because they thought he resembled the famous cartoon dog. The nickname stayed with him throughout childhood and eventually evolved into the stage name the entire world would come to know. As Calvin entered his teenage years, life outside the church became much more complicated. The streets offered friendships, respect, and a sense of belonging that was difficult for a young person to ignore. While he remained interested in sports and school, he slowly became influenced by the dangerous environment around him. The Long Beach neighborhood where he lived was increasingly affected by drugs, gangs, and violence. Every day presented new risks, and many teenagers around him struggled to stay on the right path. Calvin was no exception. Although he successfully graduated from high school, his future quickly took an unexpected turn. Only a short time after graduation, he was arrested on drug-related charges. Over the following years, he faced repeated legal troubles that made it seem unlikely he would ever escape the life he had grown up in. For Beverly, it was heartbreaking. She had watched her son perform in church and dreamed of a bright future for him. Now she feared those dreams might never come true. Yet through every setback, one thing remained constant: his passion for music. Calvin began recording homemade rap songs with his cousin Nate Dogg and his close friend Warren G. They had little money, basic equipment, and no connections in the music industry. Still, they believed their voices deserved to be heard. The three friends formed a group called 213, named after the Long Beach area code. They spent countless hours creating demo tapes, hoping someone important might eventually listen. That opportunity finally arrived when one of their recordings reached legendary producer Dr. Dre. The moment Dr. Dre heard Calvin's voice, he realized it was something special. His smooth delivery and effortless style stood out from everyone else. It was the break Calvin had been waiting for. Soon, he was invited into the studio to work with Dr. Dre, opening the door to a career that would change his life forever. But while success was finally within reach, the biggest challenges of his life were only beginning. Working with Dr. Dre changed Calvin Broadus's life forever. His unforgettable performances on The Chronic introduced him to millions of listeners, and before long, the world knew him as Snoop Dogg. His calm delivery, unique style, and effortless confidence made him one of the most exciting new artists in hip-hop. In 1993, Snoop released his debut album, Doggy Style. It became an instant success, debuting at #1 and selling hundreds of thousands of copies in its first week. Almost overnight, he transformed from a young man recording homemade tapes into one of the biggest names in music. The success brought everything he had once dreamed of: money, fame, luxury cars, sold-out concerts, and worldwide recognition. But behind the spotlight, life was becoming more dangerous than ever. As Snoop's career continued to grow, he became deeply involved with Death Row Records, one of the most powerful labels in hip-hop. The label was home to major stars, including Dr. Dre and later Tupac Shakur. To the public, it looked like an unstoppable empire. Behind the scenes, however, tensions were rising. personal conflicts, rivalries, and constant pressure created an environment where trust became difficult. Snoop later admitted that despite all the success, he never truly felt safe. Then everything changed in August 1993. A confrontation in Los Angeles ended with the death of a young man, and Snoop suddenly found himself facing one of the biggest legal battles of his life. He and his bodyguard were charged in connection with the incident, and the future that had seemed so bright suddenly became uncertain. Instead of focusing only on music, Snoop spent the next several years moving between recording studios, meetings with lawyers, and courtroom appearances. Every new song, every concert, and every interview carried the fear that it might all disappear if the trial ended the wrong way. Although his career continued to soar, he privately struggled with one question that haunted him every day: would he spend the rest of his life in prison? During this difficult period, Snoop had also become a father. More than anything else, he worried about whether he would be there to watch his son grow up. Fame no longer mattered as much as the possibility of losing his freedom and missing the chance to be part of his family's future. Finally, after years of uncertainty, the jury found Snoop and his bodyguard not guilty of the most serious charges. He walked out of the courtroom a free man. But the experience changed him forever. The trial taught him that success could disappear overnight and that every decision carried consequences far beyond his music career. Unfortunately, the difficult moments were far from over. Soon after, the hip-hop world was shaken by heartbreaking losses. Tupac Shakur was killed in 1996, leaving Snoop devastated. Years later, he would also lose his longtime friend and cousin Nate Dogg, another person who had been with him since the beginning of his journey. One by one, people who had helped shape his life were gone. Despite the fame, the awards, and the fortune, Snoop began to realize that money could never replace the people he loved. As the years passed, he slowly started to rethink the direction of his life. He wanted more than hit records and celebrity status. He wanted peace. That decision would soon lead him toward the greatest battle he would ever face, not in a courtroom, but inside his own home. After surviving years of legal battles and the pressure of fame, Snoop Dogg wanted a fresh start. He left Death Row Records behind and focused on building a better future. It wasn't an easy decision, but walking away from conflict allowed him to protect what mattered most: his family. By then, Snoop had married his longtime girlfriend, Calvin Broadus. They had known each other since high school, long before fame and fortune entered their lives. Together they built a family and welcomed 3 children, Cordell, and Corey. For a while, everything seemed to be falling into place. Snoop continued releasing music, acting in movies, and expanding his career beyond hip-hop. He had finally achieved the success he once dreamed about. But behind the scenes, his marriage was beginning to suffer. Years of touring, business commitments, and constant public attention slowly created distance between Snoop and Chant. The demands of celebrity life left little time for family, and their relationship became increasingly strained. In 2004, Snoop filed for divorce, believing there was no way to repair their marriage. After everything they had built together, it looked like their relationship had reached its end. Then life delivered a challenge neither of them expected. Their youngest daughter, Corey, suddenly became seriously ill. She began losing weight. Her hair started falling out, and doctors struggled to understand what was happening. Every day brought new fear as her condition worsened. Eventually, doctors diagnosed Corey with lupus, a serious autoimmune disease that can affect many parts of the body. She was only 6 years old. The diagnosis changed everything. For the first time, Snoop realized that no amount of fame or money could protect the people he loved. He could afford the best doctors and treatments, but he couldn't simply make his daughter's illness disappear. Later, he admitted that he felt completely helpless. Watching his little girl fight such a difficult disease forced him to look at his own life in a different way. The things he once believed were important, fame, money, and success, suddenly seemed far less meaningful than being present for his family. As Corey continued treatment, Snoop and Chant found themselves standing side by side once again. Instead of focusing on the problems in their marriage, they focused on helping their daughter. Little by little, Corey began showing incredible strength. She returned to school, played sports, and refused to let her illness define her life. Her courage inspired everyone around her, especially her father. Seeing his daughter's determination change Snoop forever, he realized he had come dangerously close to losing not only his marriage, but also precious time with his children. He understood that being a father meant more than simply providing financial support. It meant showing up every single day. The experience brought Snoop and Shant closer together. Instead of ending their marriage, they decided to rebuild it. They worked through years of pain, rebuilt their trust, and chose to put their family first. After rebuilding his family, Snoop Dogg began looking at life through a completely different lens. The fame was still there, the music continued, and new business opportunities kept coming, but his priorities had changed. He no longer measured success by album sales or awards. Instead, he measured it by the time he spent with his family and the positive impact he could have on others. Over the years, Snoop expanded far beyond music. He appeared in movies and television shows, launched successful businesses, became a sports coach, and partnered with major companies around the world. His relaxed personality introduced him to a whole new generation of fans who knew him not just as a rapper, but as an entertainer who could connect with people from every background. One of the projects closest to his heart was the Snoop Youth Football League. Remembering the struggles of his own childhood, he wanted to give young people a safe place to grow, learn discipline, and stay away from crime and violence. Thousands of children have participated in the program, and many have earned college scholarships and even reached professional football. For Snoop, helping the next generation became one of his greatest achievements. But even as his career continued to grow, life reminded him that success could never protect a family from heartbreak. In 2021, Snoop experienced one of the most painful losses of his life when his beloved mother, Beverly Tate, passed away. She had been the person who believed in him before anyone else did. She was there when he was simply Calvin, the young boy singing in church, long before the fame and fortune arrived. Her passing left a deep emptiness in his heart. Despite everything he had accomplished, losing his mother reminded him that some losses can never be replaced. No amount of money or success could bring back the woman who had shaped his life from the very beginning. Then, only a few years later, tragedy struck the family again. His younger half-brother, Bing Worthington, passed away unexpectedly. Bing had worked closely with Snoop for years and was not only family, but also one of his trusted business partners. Once again, Snoop found himself mourning someone who had been by his side through much of his journey. The hardest moments, however, were still ahead. His daughter Corey, who had spent most of her life battling lupus, continued facing serious health challenges. Although she showed incredible strength, the family was once again forced to confront fear and uncertainty. Then another heartbreaking loss affected the family when Corey's premature baby passed away after months of fighting for life. For Snoop, these moments were painful reminders that life is fragile. The man who had survived the streets, legal battles, and the pressures of fame discovered that the greatest challenges often happen far away from cameras and headlines. Through every loss, he chose to remain present for the people who needed him most. Instead of running from grief, he leaned on his family, supported his children, and continued giving back to his community. Today, Snoop Dogg's legacy is about much more than music. Yes, he helped shape hip-hop and inspired countless artists, but perhaps his greatest achievement is proving that people can learn from their mistakes, rebuild broken relationships, and choose a different path. His journey is a reminder that success isn't measured only by wealth or fame. It's measured by the lives we touch, the family we protect, and the legacy we leave behind. From a young boy growing up in one of Long Beach's toughest neighborhoods to becoming one of the most recognizable entertainers in the world, Snoop Dogg's story is one of resilience, redemption, and growth. His life proves that the past may shape us, but it doesn't have to define our future. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the lives of the world's biggest celebrities. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.